Hello everyone. I'm really pleased to be able to do this seminar for us today. Disappointed that we're not at Expo as planned, but all the same, this is a great way to get a message across. I guess for me, I've been doing traveling around the world, speaking to the beauty industry for well over 2 decades. And everywhere I've traveled in the world, some questions are the same no matter where you go. One of those questions is, how do we get the most out of our staff? And for me, this maximising staff performance has become a bit of a favourite. Now, I have to admit, over the years, there's probably been 10,000 different ways that I can give advice on how to maximise staff performance. But we've been asked to reduce it down to my 5 favourite, and so here we go. Now, if you're watching this and you want to take notes, that's great. But the easy way is to write down my email address. It's paul@paulcarbis.com. And if you email me and request a copy of the notes, I'll send you the slide presentation that I would usually use. All right, here we go. My top 5 ways that I maximize staff performance, and they're in no real order, come down to 5 basic principles of business. The first one is all about leadership. Now, if you run a salon or a clinic, a spa, anywhere, I don't care where it is in the world, one thing that I've discovered is that teams actually want to be led. They want clear direction. They want guidance. They want to see growth. They want someone to take a leadership role. And if we abdicate that responsibility, if we don't fulfill that role, disharmony, disquiet, and a sense of not really having any purpose or direction sets in. So my number 1 rule is, don't be scared to lead. It's your clinic, your salon, your business, your responsibility. And when you employ people, what you're actually doing is you're taking responsibility for their behavior and their growth and their education and their talent being fulfilled. And when you look at it like that, you just can't abdicate that responsibility to someone else. You must lead. It cannot be done when you are head down, backside up, working in a room for 40 odd hours a week. That's not leadership. I often take many of my clinic owners on what I call a helicopter ride. And it seems that the higher you go, the more you see. So give me an example. If you're in a room doing treatments, you can't see who's waiting at the front in your reception area. You can't see what's going on behind the front counter. You can't see which of your therapists is running late. You can't see whether retail sales are being made or not. You can't see what they're talking about, whether they're trying to upsell, whether they're rebooking. You've got no idea. If I take you out of the room and put you on reception, you can see all of those things. You can even see who's walking past the front doors. You can see which therapists are busy, which ones aren't. You are answering phones so that you can guarantee when a person rings up to cancel their appointment, they don't cancel, they rebook for another time, or you upsell extras to the appointment that they have made. When someone's discussing their treatment or products or whatever, you're the one who can hear it, see it, and take control of it. Now, if I put you on the roof of the salon, all of a sudden now you can see how busy the car park is, what the local businesses are doing. You may see the salon down the road. You can judge a bigger community feel for your local area. And this is really important because now you can see when busy times or walk past traffic. You can see when the car park's full or not full. You can see what other businesses are doing their marketing and what that marketing is and whether you could get in with it. If you're in a shopping centre, you know the busy times, the not so busy times, when events are on, all those sorts of things. If I took you even higher, you'd be able to see what your opposition salons are doing, how busy they are, what programs they're running, what sort of events they're holding or marketing campaigns they're undertaking. And so the higher we go in the helicopter, the more you understand about where your business sits. I've never been one to allow salon owners to work full-time in the room. Now, I'm still a working therapist. I still like to be hands-on for some time, but there's no way you can run a salon and maximize your staff performance if you are hiding away in a room and not in control of what's going on. So my number one rule is you need to lead. Now, I've always said that it's one thing for you to know what's going on. You go home, you look at the figures, you see the reports, you hear the conversation. All of that's great. It's one thing for you to know what's going on, but it's a completely other thing for your staff to know you know. And that's where it becomes important. So when your staff know you're on top of things, they're more likely to perform. They're more likely to conform. They're more likely to do their role in the way that you want it done. So my number one thing, don't be scared to lead. As I said, these aren't in any order, but my number two rule for maximizing staff performance is that everyone needs clear expectations. Now, there's lots of things involved in that. Clear expectations mean getting professionally made contracts and actually sitting down and going through them with staff. If anything changes, their hours, their role, the days they work, any of that changes, their rate of pay even, they should be given a new contract, and this should happen again. Clear expectations mean that they know what the rules are. For that, there also needs to be very clearly produced procedure manuals for every procedure in the salon, whether that be opening and closing, whether it be cleaning, whether it be how to prepare a room, what to do with a gift voucher. All of these things are procedures, and those manuals need to be apparent. It should be that if you're not present, someone can access the information to know exactly what needs to happen. Another area that needs very clear expectations are what are the values of the salon? Is it customer service? Is it professionalism? Is it education? Is it a well-being? Is it a community service? What is it? What are the values that you hold for when people walk into the salon that they know you stand for? And what are the values you hold for your staff? Are they things like honesty, loyalty? These sorts of values are really important, and they must be understood by every single staff member. If you want them to perform, they have to know where they stand. What about protocols? Every single procedure that you do in your treatment rooms should have a protocol. If you want your staff to perform, you want to maximize their performance, they need to know that these are the ways that you want these procedures done. In fact, even better if they are involved in writing them. And so for everything you do, from a simple wax to the most onerous of treatments like needling or laser IPL, these sorts of things must have very clear protocols, and everyone in the salon needs to understand what these protocols are, how they can access them, so there is no unclear ideas about how to do things. You want to maximize staff performance? Then all of these very clear expectations need to be addressed, as well as things like behavior, dress standards, what jewelry can be worn, drugs, alcohol, cigarette smoking, all of these things, how you do that within your practice. What are the rules? What are the cannot happen? versus it can happen, but it has to happen at lunchtime and you need to get changed and you need, all of these things have to happen. What language you want, what are the work standards, what are the hours of work? So if you start at 9 o'clock, is it a standard that you need to be at work to prepare prior to that time? You know, what are the standards that you require, and are these clear expectations that everyone understands? Now, I believe that these clear expectations should also include a set of KPIs. Now, KPIs are key performance indicators that have nothing to do with personality and are clearly just facts and figures. What I like about KPIs is they're not personal. It's not whether I like you, it's clearly just about your performance. And so it's totally figures based, and it means that there are comparisons that can be made, whether they be comparisons for the same therapist against what they did last week or last month or last year, or comparisons between top therapists in your own salon, or comparisons against salon standards, or comparisons against even national standards. Now, these KPIs are a set of figures that could involve things like the number of hours worked versus the number of customers. It could be your rebooking rates. It could be the number of treatments that were performed and the mix of those treatments. How many were high end? How many were shorter, quicker, less income treatments like brow shapes? It could be something that's really interesting, and that is how many of your customers actually have more than one treatment when they visit? Because this absolutely affects your average spend per customer, especially in services. It could be a measurement of your income in services or your income in retail, your average spend per customer in services, the number of items that you sold, the percentage of your total income that retail makes up. It could be the average item cost that you sell. It could be the average spend per customer or even the income per hour. Now, you have a set of standard KPIs, and they are addressed on a weekly or fortnightly basis. And I expect that for juniors that you would sit them down on a weekly basis, maybe seniors a more fortnightly basis, and you clearly show them where they're at. I've always said it's very hard to expect a girl to improve if they don't actually know where they sit. So you can't tell someone off if you haven't told them what their performance actually is. Now, many senior therapists love me sitting down and doing their KPIs with them. Yes, it can be a time when you have to discipline or show them what they've done wrong or not done. But more often than not, if you do this on a regular basis, it's a time to reward and thank and praise. And I love it when many of the girls that I work with will come to you with their figures and they'll actually go, look, tell me how good I am. They already know that they've performed well. They're proud of themselves. And they can only have that if they know what the target, what the goal, what the standard was that they were trying to achieve in the first place. If they don't know that, how can they say that they've performed well? Similarly, how far from their goal or target were they if they didn't make it? Is it something that's still achievable? How do we set that? And so clear expectations become something that when you sit down with girls, they understand what's required. And this is really important. Too many salon owners allow week after week after week to just roll on, and there is no real expectation of staff as to where they should be. What's their retail target? What sort of money should they be making? What's their hourly rate supposed to be? They have no idea. And so you can't actually expect them to improve. And what does that word mean? Improve. I mean, does it mean improve this much or this much? These are got to be expectations that are very clear and understood by not just by you, but by them as well. And that brings me to my third point. My third point is there has to be targets, goals, incentives and rewards. Bonuses, if you like. Now, look, many people know I hate the idea of paying incentives or bonuses. For me, they're already paid to do the job. Why should you have to bribe someone to do what they're already paid for? So I hate the idea of it, but by golly, I know it works. So if you want to improve your staff performance, one of the things is that you need to set clear targets and goals. I often go through a little exercise with people. Exactly what is a goal? Now, if I say to you, I want you to imagine that it's New Year's Eve and we're with a group of friends and we're all going to make a New Year's Eve resolution of a goal for next year. Now, some people will say, I'm going to get fit. That's not a goal, that's a wish. Some people will say, I'm going to lose weight. Great, but that's not a goal, that's a wish. Some people will even say, I'm going to lose weight by my birthday. Now, that's also not a goal, it's a wish. Goals need to have two elements. They need to have a time element, so a period of time. So in the next week, you will. In the next month, you will. In the next 3 months, we will see. And they need to have a number attached to them. So for my weight loss as a New Year's resolution, and it probably should be, my weight loss goal needs to say that by the 1st of March, a time period, I will lose 10 kilos, maybe 11. Now, that time and number is important on anything we do. So if we're doing KPIs and you want to push the boundaries, improve their performance, which is what maximizing staff performance is all about, then what you need to do is set targets that have a time element and a number attached to it. So, example, let's choose the number of retail items sold. So let's have a young therapist who sees 30 clients for the week. It's reasonable to ask that in the next 7 days, she will sell 10 items. So we have a time period and a number. Now, that's something that is a goal. It's a real target. To say you need to sell more, well, if I sell one more, have I achieved it? And this is the problem many salon owners face. They'll sit staff down and they'll say, you're not doing well enough, you need to do better, you need to improve. What does that actually mean? Does that mean 1 item or does that mean 5 items? By when? How long have I got to do this improvement? Is it tomorrow? Is it a week? Is it a month? What about it? And so these things become, they might sound a little particular, but they become really important in the mind of a therapist who's receiving this information. Even a senior therapist who's trying to push herself, who's trying to do better, who wants to earn more money in bonuses or incentives, they actually need to know numbers. They actually want a time period. They actually want to be pushed. And this is where that whole you need to lead comes into play. It's also where clear expectations comes into play. So when I talk about targets, I believe that they should be very small, incrementally increasing steps. And the way I think about that is almost so small that you can't fail. So instead of going, you're only selling 2 items a week, I need you to sell 10, and the therapist gets 3, gets 4, gets 5 even, and that's fail, fail, fail. I can't do this. This is too hard, and gives up. Go from 2 to 3 or 4. And what happens, even though it's a very small step, it's almost impossible to fail if you're giving them guidance and help and product knowledge and what have you. So what happens is they get success, and then another small step, success, and another small step, success. And so success on success on success means that they want to keep going because they're getting praised, they're getting rewarded, they're getting thanked. And that positive reinforcement means that even if they do get a fail along the way, they've had so much success that they're willing to try again. And this is how we step our young therapists through and maximize their performance by slowly and surely increasing, rather than set unreal expectations that is far too big a step, and we get fail after fail after fail. So targets are really important. Whilst I think that they're a bit of a bribe to put a reward at the end of it, an incentive, if you like, I know that they work. I do have some rules. I never separate services and retail. I always reward on total performance. Now, there's a fundamental reason I say that, and that is that I personally, as a therapist, cannot separate the advice I give for home care from the treatments that I perform. They need to go hand in hand. They need to go glove in hand. They need to be together. For me to get a result on a client's skin, they not only need to see me regularly, but they also need to come in and take home the products I recommend and use them how I tell them to, when I tell them to. That's how we maximize their treatment. Now, it doesn't matter whether it be an ingrown hair solution and a loofah glove and body exfoliant for a leg wax client, or whether it be hydrators and pigment inhibitors with moisturizers and cleansers for a client that you're doing peels and facials on. So it doesn't matter the treatment, these things should go hand in hand. And so one of the things that I would recommend is that you give your incentives or rewards or bonuses, however you want to put it, into total income or total performance, and not separate retail from services. When you separate retail, you have the situation where therapists will sell for the sake of selling in order to reach a target or a reward in retail sales. I don't think that that's very good business. I think it needs to be married to the treatments that you're doing as well. I also think that the bonus should only be paid on the money or the numbers above what your target is. That means that your target is the minimum expectation of performance. And when you go above and beyond that, I thank and reward and praise you. It's very important that that minimum is reached, and it's seen to be that's the bottom line. Now, even if that is well above what the bottom line really is, you need to pay on what they earn above that so that it becomes the expectation. So targets and goals are really interesting. Another thing to think about is if you can separate their weekly pay with their bonus, so that their bonus isn't seen as the expected weekly pay. It's seen as something you've done above and beyond for good behavior. It's seen as something that you are offering them out of the goodness of your heart for their performance, their good performance. And so if you can pay wage and pay bonus, and if you do put them together, at least on their payslip or the information you give them, separate them out so that they can see that this was for their expectation for their pay, and the rest was a thank you for your good performance. It's really important. Number 4, Number 4 is about communication. So let's run through these. So we had number 1, you need to lead. Number 2, clear expectations. When you're a leader and you can give clear expectations of what the performance should be, and everyone's on board with that, everyone understands it, we're halfway home. Number 3, set targets, set goals. Do goal setting exercises with your team and reward, praise, thank, offer bonuses for performance that is above and beyond those expectations. Number 4 is all about communication. Communication in a salon environment, in a clinic, in a spa, should be clear, it should be regular, and it should be business focused. It's not about being personal. So when I communicate with staff, it's not, while you want to be friends, there has to be communication that is specific to the business. I like to do it in a number of different ways, but my primary way of doing it is in one-on-ones. Now, I believe in one-on-one meetings on a regular basis. For my junior staff, I would be doing them weekly. They're really important. It means that you are keeping in touch. And it's a two-way thing. It not only gives your expectations, your insight, the information you want to get across, but it gives them an opportunity to ask their questions, air their concerns or their observations, and sometimes even their great ideas. Now, this becomes really, really important. And it means that there is a set time for them to air any ideas or any grievances that they have, not in things like a staff meeting or in open public. It provides a forum where you can talk together and it's about them. And this is why I like one-on-ones rather than, whilst I love staff meetings, one-on-ones become really important. And it's this idea of having a one-on-one meeting with the boss. Now, at first it can sound like, oh my God, the boss wants to meet with me. But it doesn't have to be like that. It can be exciting as well. It can be something where girls look forward to it so that they can say, I did good, didn't I? And they has to be about KPIs, key performance indicators. And the reason for that is it's not whether it's about your attitude or your personality or anything like that. It's about facts and figures. That can't be argued. The computer doesn't lie. So you either have or you haven't reached the expectations or your goals or targets. The other side of that is that it's a time when you can review and set new targets. It can be a time when you talk about, is there a need for further education? Is there a need to do extra training? Is there a need? Why haven't we reached our targets? What's the roadblock? And discuss that and come up with ways around it. Or if things are flying along, what are we going to do? And work it out together. These new targets, these new goals are something that you should set together that you're both happy about. It's a time to talk about marketing. It's a time to talk about product focuses. So especially with junior therapists who might be selling a little bit of skincare, but they're primarily doing a lot of waxing and brows. You know, they do all these brow work, but they don't sell lash conditioners, they don't sell eye creams, they don't sell eye color, they don't sell mascara, they don't sell eyeliner, they don't sell brow pencil. And this is a guy talking this without even thinking. So this is a common thing where you can give them some product focus in this one-on-one that's specific for them. It also means that you can discuss things like their training or their professional growth, what's coming up, what they might like to attend, what you've got planned for them, and get them excited about what's happening over the next couple of weeks. I believe that one-on-one information needs to be written down. It makes it real. not just for you as a record, which if you've got a large team, you need to do, but for them as well. They see that you are taking this seriously. I also believe that it needs to be scheduled, and that means you set the time aside in the computer. It only needs to be 15, 20 minutes, no more. And that is the time it would take to do a brow shape worth $20, $25. I believe that my staff members are worth at least that money to sit down. They're more important than $25 worth of income. And that's the message that I'm giving when I schedule these events in. It means that it's important, that they're important, and that I value that time together where we can discuss what we need to get through. Like I said, it's as much a time for a pat on the back as it is for discipline or reprimand or reminders. And I love it when girls actually come to these meetings excited because they've reached their target, they've done their goal, that they want to tell you about how well they've done. And that is when coming to work for them is a really fun experience. It's an experience that they enjoy, an experience that they want to look forward to the next step. The second type of communication is a staff meeting. Now, staff meetings are necessary. They don't need to be as often as one-on-one. And I think that they need to have agendas. I like agendas because it means everyone stays on track. Staff meetings, I like to have them in the beginning of the day, which means they can't go too long because we have to open up and see clients. That then means that someone can't go off on a tangent. We have to stay on agenda. And so we get to cover all the things that we need to without it dragging on and on and on. Now, staff meetings can be about praise or discipline. They can for the entire team. And this is a good idea when you don't want to single out a single person and embarrass them in front of everyone else. Staff meetings can also be to announce marketing campaigns and discuss those, to talk about things like newsletters, talk about things like what's going on social media, talk about things that expectations in the salon that aren't being met. Could be things like how well the place is being cleaned, or whether or not something was missed in the closing procedures, or anything at all like that that is operational. I think staff meetings need to be held at least once a month, and it's a great chance for everyone to get together collectively, which is something that is rare in salon. I know some salons that I've dealt with over the years have actually had one day a week where everyone's working, like a Thursday, say, and they have a group lunch and they block that time out. And it's a great little social event that happens every week where they all sit down together and have lunch. Now, it's a really difficult thing to organize, but for the salons that have done it, they find that the chatter in that time, where it's one of the few times everyone is together, it becomes a really good team building exercise. Staff meetings can do the same thing. We also have some other ways that we can do communication. So we can also use things like group emails and, of course, group Facebook pages that mean that that select group of girls can communicate within the group and throw around ideas, receive information, and so on. You can also communicate that way one-on-one. So I can send you your performance for the week. I can say thank you. I can tell you what your hours or your bonus was. You know, all of that sort of information can be done through a social media platform or through private emails. So communication becomes a really big thing. Why is such a logical thing on my top 4? And the reason is because I see so many salons fall into the rut that they just roll along week after week after week, and the girls get no real information about what's going on. It just seems to be one week into the next. So there's nothing to look forward to. There's no real gutsy thing that they can look at as what they're going to do. There's no group exercise that as a team they come together and try and achieve. There's no training that's there in the future for them to aim for, or a target for the team to meet. So again, it's a lack of that leadership when communication breaks down and it just becomes a week after week event where no real communication takes place. Those sorts of environments very quickly become toxic, and we lack that freshness that comes about when communication is clear and it's regular and it's business focused, with things for people to look forward to, information for them to take away and think about, and an opportunity for them to input into how the salon is operating. The fifth thing for me is something that I've been passionate about my whole career in beauty, and that is training. If we want to maximize our staff performance, we need to lead. We need to have clear expectations. We need to have targets, goals, and they need to be rewarded, thanked, bonused, incentivized, however you want to do it. We need to have very clear communication. And my fifth thing is that we need to keep training. One of the reasons why I've been involved in this industry for so long is because it's ever evolving. There is always something new. There's a new product, new ingredients. We've added the use of supplements to our ranges. We've got new equipment. There's always new equipment. There is new technology. There is computerization. We've got photographic skin scanners that we didn't have 10 years ago. We've got lasers and IPL. We've got amazing equipment. What we now do with skin needling blows everyone out of the water. In fact, to the point where much of the public doesn't actually understand that we can do many of the things that we do. Training becomes a really important part of keeping up to date. But it's also a great way of keeping girls interested, keeping them in the industry, keeping them in your salon as a place where they're continually learning, continually upgrading, continually feeling like they're improving themselves. And that becomes a really powerful tool in maximizing their performance. If you want to maximize a girl's performance, they can't just wax their entire life. They can't just do brow tints and lash tints and shapes and think that that's beauty therapy. They can't just do nails. There's not money in that. But when you can train them and build them through facials and peels and microdermabrasion and all the things that we can do, and build them up into IPL and laser, and build them up into skin needling, and build them up into, you know, equipment like RF and all of these wonderful things that we can do, they continually grow. Their performance continually grows. Their income continually grows. Their rewards and thanks and praise and bonuses continually grow, and everyone grows. I believe that training can be done as a group, with reps coming in and doing training, or you doing the training individually for the group. There are professionals like myself that come into salons all over the world and do training, whether it be retail sales, whether it be skin analysis, whether it be individual treatments like skin needling or IPL or advanced treatments. There's plenty of training that can be done as a group. But I think where the real power of training comes is when we have individualized training programs, where each staff member have their own individualized step system training program. And once you pass this, your next training will be this. There's an expectation of how long that will take. There's an expectation that you will be able to perform this treatment in this time frame on these clients perfectly, according to the protocols or the procedures manual that we have in our salon. Now, I'm not a fan of girls doing half-price treatments for practice. I believe that if you want your salon standards to be high, then a girl doesn't be put on training on a client at all. They only treat a client and they charge full price for it if they are perfectly competent to do that treatment. If need be, they get friends and family, other staff members to train on. but they need for the public to come in and pay full price because they are perfectly competent. For me, individualized training programs are ones where we take girls and we give them something to look forward to. And it's in a process, a program that is step by step by step. And the easiest way to do that is to go from learning reception, an induction, reception, figuring that out, and then doing the procedures where you can do probably the least amount of harm. So brow shapes and things like that are not the first things that they should be learning. Perhaps it should be things like massage. Perhaps it should be things like manicures and pedicures. Maybe it should be those sorts of procedures, leg waxing, bikini waxing, underarm waxing, the basics, and then build them into things where we can actually cause some damage if we don't do it well. But however you organize it, there needs to be a very clear process that when a girl comes to your salon, they start at a particular point and they work their way through this process, and it's individual. It needs to be individual. Every single therapist that you employ learns differently, learns at a different pace, will enable themselves to have a skill base that's competent at a different pace in a different way. They will learn better, some in a group, some by themselves. Some will like to see it written, some will need it practical, some will like it heard. It all differs. So there's no way that you can put the whole team through at the same training over a long period of time and expect them to all grasp each skill at the same pace. And that's why I'm an advocate for individualized training programs. Once that training program has been established with a staff member, then your one-on-ones become a point where you ascertain whether or not where they're up to and whether or not they're ready to move to the next level. Part of the training has to be product and ingredient training. They have to be competent with their product knowledge. Tests, games, quizzes, all of these things need to be done on a regular basis as part of training so that staff can be expected to sell these products to the public. Now, it's an easy cop-out for girls to say, oh, I don't know the products well enough. They all have product manuals and can all Google, they can all read. But you need to provide a platform for them to understand the products and the ingredients that they're going to be using. Not just for the ones they're selling, but also for the ones they're using in salon treatments. Protocols. I'm a great believer that staff need to be involved in the writing of protocols as well as, or the production of the writing of protocols, as well as just knowing them. So it's no good just to train someone in a protocol. If you can get them involved in the procedure of making the protocols, especially for new treatments, then it's even better. Just recently, I've been in a salon that did lash lifting as a new procedure in the salon. Now, these lash curls, they used a particular product brand and found that if they changed the timing just slightly, it improved the performance of the lash lift and the length of time it lasted. So as a team, they came away with how to train each other, and the protocol was changed for the entire salon, and the entire team was part of doing that. I'm a believer that not only do products and their ingredients need to be taught, but so does skin structure and function. Now, we know that training schools have a very limited amount of time to produce beauty therapists. And we know that when a beauty therapist leaves training school and arrives at our front door, that they do not have adequate knowledge of skin function or structure. They do not have adequate knowledge of how to do all of our procedures. They do not have adequate knowledge of our products and the ingredients that we use. So it's really important that you take on that role and train it. Now, here's the interesting thing. If you do these things, then your staff actually feel like they're growing. They actually feel more competent. They actually feel like they now possess a skill and knowledge base that they can talk confidently with their customers about it. That means upselling treatments, and it means more retail sales. You want to maximize staff performance? This is a really important way of doing it. Another way is skin analysis and skin diagnosis. So for me, again, having a look at the skin, and I don't care what it is, whether it be the type of hair growth or a follicle that's got folliculitis, or whether it's an ingrown hair, or that's waxing. But it's important they understand these things. Similarly on the skin, whether or not they're diagnosing things like rosacea versus acneic skins, what sort of acne it is, whether or not it was actually rosacea or just a cuprous skin with problems, whether or not that was gut health related, or whether or not it was environmental, whether or not the rhytids or lines and wrinkles are from elastin loss or collagen loss, where they are on the skin, what direction they're doing. All of these things become really important. How do they use a simple thing like a Woods lamp or a black light box or a photographic skin scanner? These become really important tools that allow a therapist to do their job more competently. We want to maximize staff performance, competence, and confidence in their competence is a really important way of doing it. Of course, training on how they can set their own goals, how they can set their own targets is also a great way of doing things. Equipment training. Yeah. Anyone who's been in the industry for the 2 decades or more that I have seen a plethora of new equipment come into salons. I mean, we used to do our appointments in a book with a pencil. Now we have amazing software programs that you've got to be a genius just to handle. Yeah, you can do all your appointments, you can do all your marketing, you can even do wages and everything. All our stock control is all within these programs. The type of IPLs and lasers, RF machine, all of these types of equipment that we now use as standard in the salon. This equipment can cost many thousands of dollars, tens and tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that sort of equipment is now stock standard in salons. Photographic skin scanners, needling pens, all of these sorts of things are stock standard in salons that never used to be. I mean, I can remember the first peels coming in. So for us, equipment training is also something that needs to be upgraded on a regular basis. What we knew 5 years ago may not anymore be the case. Even things as basic as reception, answering the phone correctly can make or break a business. Taking a phone call that says, I'd like to cancel my appointment, and not just going, yes, okay, and cancelling it, but rebooking that appointment for another time can be the difference of $100 in that week. If that happens 10 times, it's $1,000 in the week. 50 weeks of the year, that's $50,000 in lost money, lost revenue for the salon. It's that easy. Having someone who can quickly use the computer correctly, knows the procedures at reception, can greet customers warmly. What a thing that does. Someone who can recommend extra treatments, or have you tried, you know what would be really lovely to do. All of these things, who can turn a $50 gift voucher into a $75 or $100 gift voucher with suggestions. This is a really important way that salons make money. It also can maximize the performance of a staff member. So things like cleaning. We take it for granted that a 19-year-old girl who comes to join us knows how to put washing in a washing machine, how to separate whites from dark colors, and turn the washing machine on and actually make it work. We just presume that they know how to dress a bed, when in actual fact, they haven't made their own bed at home. We just presume that they know how to sweep a floor or use a mop correctly. I know that sounds crazy, but these sorts of expectations, if they're not trained, sometimes you stand there and shake your head. Now, you might think that that's corny, but to actually take the time and train someone to use a mop correctly, and how to lift wax off a floor correctly, and how to remove marks from washing, and all of these things, these are small things, but you are maximizing what happens in the salon all the time. And when they can do these things correctly without thinking, it becomes second nature. They then move on to other duties because they were quicker. They did it more competently. They didn't have to go back and repeat it. They didn't do it wrong. That's also maximizing staff performance. I want you to remember something. Just because a girl comes into your salon and says, I have a diploma in beauty, I have a diploma in aesthetics, doesn't mean that they are going to have the knowledge or skill base that's necessary to operate competently in your salon. In fact, that diploma only allows them to cross the threshold of their door, because most salons will know that once they do that, they then start learning how to be a beauty therapist. The trick is, how do we maximize their potential and get the best performance possible out of them? And I believe that if we cover those 5 things, it's a really good start. Learn how to lead. Don't be scared about it. People in this industry, girls in this industry, want to have a leader. They want someone who knows what they're doing. They want a role model. They want to be told. They want someone to guide them, give them direction. 2, have very clear expectations from the point of starting with a contract, procedures manuals, policies, all of these things, even values of the salon. Clear expectations are absolutely vital. And that comes down to the way we dress. There's no room for error. It comes down to our behavior, the language we use, even the music that's allowed to be played, the standard of work, the hours that we need to keep, all of these things. It comes down to things like clear expectations about what KPIs are important and what the minimum standard of those KPIs are, and what the goals and targets are for each individual in the salon. Number 3, have targets, set goals, and then thank, reward, even incentivize, have bonuses, bribes, whatever you want to call it, in place so that girls have something to strive for. And in doing that, you also set a minimum standard. This minimum standard is not only in behavior and those sorts of procedures, but in performance. And that minimum standard means that you are maximizing all the time, right? Of where girls can be, what their expectations are. And if they don't meet those expectations, you have a line in the sand that you can say you did or you didn't. And if you didn't, here's what needs to happen. Number 4, if you do all of these things, you need to communicate them clearly on a regular basis. And I believe in doing that, not just in a staff meeting, not just through a group email or a Facebook chat page. It has to also be one-on-one. This is really important and shows your therapist that they are important to you and the business as a whole. And then number 5, training, training, training. Do not get stagnant. Always put something in front of staff for them to learn new. Always challenge them. Always give them something to look forward to. Always set new things for them. And that training can be done as a group. It's best done with individualized training programs. So every girl is at a certain place in their training and have something to look forward to. It needs to be about product and ingredient. It needs to be on protocols. It needs to be on skin structure and function. It needs to be on skin analysis and diagnosis. It needs to be in equipment. And it even needs to be on the simple things like reception and cleaning, how to make up a room. All of these things are really important and they need to be trained. All right. Like I said, if you would like a copy of these notes, it's really simple. contact me on paul@paulcarbis.com. Thanks for listening in. Next year, I hope I can see you in person at the Expo. Thank you.